Mr. Lazzarini, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us on Viewpoint. It's lovely to have you. You've held leadership roles across humanitarian and development agencies, including the United Nations, the ICRC. Could anything have prepared you for what you have described as UNRWA's darkest hour?
That's a very good question. I have also often described Gaza as being a place which horrifies the most seasoned humanitarian workers. So I would say very little has prepared us for what we have to deal with and with the situation in Gaza. But on the other hand, as you know, over the last 13 years, I have been in a number of conflict situations, like in Bosnia, like in the Middle East, like in Rwanda just after the genocide. And certainly over the year, what you learn is to adapt or certain agility to deal with in this kind of extraordinary complex environment where you never know what you will find out the day after.
And you were mentioning some of your past experience there, and I think it's worth actually drawing on this because you bring more than 30 years of experience in international coordination in conflict and post-conflict areas to your current role. You were mentioning Bosnia and Rwanda. You were also in Lebanon at a time of protest and unprecedented economic hardship. Before that, humanitarian coordinator in Somalia, when that country was facing one of the largest and most complex crises in the world. And then also you joined the United Nations in Iraq in 2003, just before the country was gripped by violence and sectarianism. What do you see as the main difference in the response of the international community this time round?
I think it's the intensity of everything, the intensity of the destruction, the intensity of displacement, the number of people killed in such a short time, the fact that there is absolutely no safe place for anyone in Gaza. This is something which is quite unheard. In any other conflicts across the world, you will always have a border to cross, and once you have crossed the border, you will find some safety. And this is absolutely not the case for the people being in Gaza. And what we have seen over 13 months basically is a destruction, not only the physical destruction of the Gaza Strip, but it's a social structure of an entire society which has also been destroyed.
It's not just civilians have been killed, but also indications that humanitarian workers are being deliberately targeted. Now, tell me about the existing practical and logistical obstacles and the continuing attacks on UNRWA staff and activities. How is all this affecting your work? Because there has been a very deliberate and in many ways malicious campaign against your agency.
Well, we heard also this morning that journalists have also been targeted in Gaza Strip and targeted to be silenced. But it is true that we as an organization, more than 250 staff have been killed since the beginning of the war, which is totally unheard in the history of the United Nations. And beyond the staff having been killed, we have more than 200 premises who have been hit since the beginning of the war. We had hundreds of people who were seeking the protection of the United Nations who have been killed when they were in our school or training center or health center. And in addition of that, we have a total obstruction of our operation within the Gaza Strip. Today, the main obstacle is the state of anarchy, which is prevailing in the Gaza Strip, because there is no rule of order anymore. It has been completely destroyed, and this is in addition of the difficulties that we have in accessing the Gaza Strip with the humanitarian assistance from Israel, from Egypt, or from Jordan.
What is your situation in terms of access now?
We had no convoys since mid of November. And this is extremely worrying because in September, more than 1 million people had no food. In October, 1.4 million. In November, 1.7, which means hunger is spreading, is deepening, and famine is now looming.
So just to be clear, over the past few weeks, no convoys.
We had no
allowed.
United Nations convoys which came in. The only convoy we brought in have been looted by organized gang in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah. But of course, Israel controls all the entry points, so in terms of access, the situation, that could change. That doesn't, that access could be allowed very quickly.
So just to be precise, we have access in the north through the Eretz crossing for the people who currently are in the Gaza city, about 200,000 people. We have absolutely no access for the people who are sieged in the north of Gaza, in Bet Hanoun or Jabalia, and we had no convoys coming in the south, where we have the bulk of the population, 1.7 million people, concentrated in the south, and we had no convoys coming through the Kerem Shalom crossing.
How do misinformation campaigns about your organization jeopardize the agency? And what is the one message you'd like to send to those that spread this disinformation about UNRWA?
Well, we have massive misinformation and disinformation campaign taking place. They're primarily targeting decision maker in our donor-based country, where basically they're trying to depict the organization as a terrorist organization, and basically depicting as an organization which needs to be replaced without an alternative. This is definitely putting in danger not only our operation, but also our staff, who at any moment could be labeled as working for a terrorist organization. And I do believe that this is an incitement to hate vis-a-vis the staff working for the organization.
Are you concerned about the lives of your staff?
I'm deeply concerned about that.
Is there anything you can do to protect
we
them?
had recently an incident in northern West Bank where during search from the Israeli army into houses, they found out that one staff was working with UNRWA, and basically asked the staff, how come you're working for a terrorist organization, for the staff to give access to all the data in the computer, and then brought the staff to the military barrack for interrogation during the day. So this is definitely putting our people, especially in the West Bank and in Jerusalem, into deep, deep anxiety.
I wanted to ask you about innovative ideas which maybe challenge the traditional approach to conflict resolution, because we are here at the forum today, many discussions about overcoming international challenges, conflict resolution, a very big thing in this region, and UNRWA has a unique role as a bridge between humanitarian aid and peace building. So, I know that you have a great deal that you have to handle on a day-to-day basis, and you're very vocal about the essential work of your agency. But, are you also exploring new and different channels in terms of grassroots empowerment to make refugees active participants and agents in change in local and regional initiatives? Is there a space to be explored for that?
There is definitely a space to be explored when it comes to increasing and reinforcing the socioeconomic inclusion of the refugees in the ecosystem or the country where they are currently. But when we are talking about innovation, we have also brought the discussion of the future of the agency within a political framework today. As you know, we are a human development organization, but if we want to save the mandate of the organization and make sure that in the future there will be a viable alternative, we need to have a political discussion. And this is also the reason why we are looking at shielding and insulating the mandate of the agency within the broader discussion about regarding a political pathway which would lead to a two-state solution.
Do you think it's possible to preserve the mandate of the agency amidst this very hostile and aggressive campaign that's been mounted against you?
We will spare absolutely no effort to avoid the implementation of the bills aiming at putting an end of the UNRWA operation in the occupied Palestinian territory. It would be a disaster if this happened, not only a disaster regarding the current humanitarian response in Gaza, but also a disaster in the future, such as the children. You have today in Gaza 1 in 2 persons below the age of 18, among them more than 600,000 girls and boys of the age of primary, secondary school. They live in the rubble, they are deeply traumatized, and if you do not have an agent like UNRWA bringing them back once there is a ceasefire in an education environment, we will just be sowing the seeds for more extremism in the future. And in the absence of UNRWA, in the absence of a functioning state, there is no viable alternative.
It's, you can't overestimate the enormous significance of the work and the essential services that you're delivering to the population. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Lazzarini. Thank you for speaking to Viewpoint.
Thank you for having me.